afternoon, good evening, one and all. Macro Talk 2. It is Thursday, January the 9th, 2074. I'm Alan Walls Photography, and today we have a live stream that is going to deal with the competition one last time. Great competition in November and December. Thank you to everybody who contributed images, as well as everybody who contributed prizes. You all know the results by now, so congratulations also to our winner, Merrick, and to our runners-up. In fact, to everybody who placed in the competition. It was a great competition, and thanks to Lester for helping judge it. Why we're talking about a subject that we talked about fairly recently, at least within the last year, again, is because things have changed a little bit since I've been having a regular guest judge every month. I've had a chance to observe other judges at work, and a few things have changed in my recommendations for how to win this competition. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to tell you exactly how to win this competition, and then it'll be up to you. Fair enough? Saturday, 10 o'clock in the morning, After Stack with Bud Parrott and not me. I won't be there, but Bud will be. So if you're into After Stack, I'm still not sure what Bud's planning on doing. It might be a recap, general QA, kind of getting caught up, revising everything that we talked about, or it might be something brand new. I'm not sure, but Bud will certainly let you know. He might let you know today if he shows up. Greetings, everybody. I will say hi in just a few minutes. Bud is here. I just saw him, so that's great. Bud, what are you going to talk about on Saturday? Let us know if you don't mind. If you hear an irritating whiny buzz, well, the whiny part's probably me, but the buzzing noise is from my space heater, because this space is not heated enough. It's freezing cold here. Ice, snow on the ground, horrible, absolutely shocking weather, should be illegal. So I'm not turning the heater off because I will immediately start shivering. So that's the way it is. I am looking for ideas of subjects and topics to cover in the live streams for the coming year. I actually plan quite far in advance, so I'm open to any suggestions you have. Same goes for any other programming changes you'd like to see. If you think that there could be a better time for a live stream, for example, let me know that. If there is somebody you want me to interview, let me know that. Subjects for videos, let me know that. Things you want me to review, let me know. Okay, put it in the chat, please, if you don't mind, or send me a message through one of the messaging platforms. Probably the best one is the Walls app. That one does get checked frequently. All right, I am soon to be launching a product. This will probably be an absolute disaster because of my business acumen in this type of thing. But there have been a number of requests for my birefringent crystal chemical starter pack for crystal photography. And I've seen, as I put together a couple of these to use as prizes, I thought, well, heck, I'll just make a few more. So if anybody's interested, let me know, and I will put something on the website so that you can see all about it. It's just a stand with some vials of chemicals, the ones I most like, that you can mess around with to try your own crystals. Okay? Should be fun. And let me see, what else am I planning on doing? I'm planning on getting the drawings out for the new improved Mark 27 or whatever it is polarizing platform. I've improved it since the last time. It's easier to print, easier to make, less material, and yeah, this time I will post the drawings so that you can make one yourself if you want to. What else? Yes, I'm putting out a tutorial video on crystal making for those who are interested. That should be out before too long. Also a basic equipment shopping list if you're just getting started. Okay, coming up, I have a review of the most bizarre and complicated bellows ever invented, the Kenlock system. This was sent to me for review by Paul in California, and this is it's quite the most bizarre bellows I've ever used. I'll be talking about that quite soon. It's also going to be an in-depth review of the Shibuya extra long working distance infinity conjugate apochromatic lenses from Japan, from Shibuya. These are the hopefully competition to Mitutoyo. They're a lot cheaper, but as soon as I get my hands on them, I'll start testing them and bring you that full report. There will be an interview coming up quite soon with Zamir Pena, somebody that a lot of you know. He's the guy that invented the AK diffuser. I've been experimenting with it and working with it a little bit, talking to some folks. And our interview got sidetracked at the last minute earlier this week, and we're going to get together in the next week or two, and we're going to complete our discussion. And we're going to be talking not just about diffusers and camera equipment, but also about starting companies and being an entrepreneur and growing a business, that type of thing, because he's done a remarkable job. He's a very interesting guy, and I think that you'll enjoy that. So that will be coming up before you know it. So today, as I said, the thing that's changed for me is that I have gone from being the judge of these competitions to being a relatively insignificant co-judge, and most of the judging is done by my guest judges, as much of it as they want. And that has really changed the way I look at the competition, because I talk to these people and I see what they're doing, I see the decisions they're making, and I talk to them about them. And it's given me a few ideas of things that you might want to do if you want to win this competition. And I thought, seeing as we hadn't talked about it in a little while, we'd talk about it now. So I have judged, gosh, it has to be almost 3 years now of competitions. That's 36 or so competitions. Maybe one or two were missed. Let's say 30. And that's a lot of competitions. And the reason I started getting an assistant co-judge, or actually I became the assistant co-judge to my guest judges, was because I needed a way to get my biases out of the way. Even though I judge these competitions blind, I don't know whose pictures they are. After 30 competitions, I know exactly whose pictures they are just by looking at them. But that is not the case for the guest judges, and I've seen quite a few different things. So what I'm going to talk about today then is the technical fundamentals, what you need to do to create a picture that's going to do well in a competition. Then I'm going to talk about your choice of subject matter and how you compose your shots. Understanding the judging criteria is probably the most important thing I'll be able to tell you today. And then a few comments on post-production and getting your pictures ready to go, and submission strategies that are more important than you think, I think. And then I'll wrap up with a few comments on how to make your submission stand out. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. And hopefully there'll be some time at the end for me to chit-chat and visit with you guys. And yeah, it's going to be fun. Harold Hall has just started doing crystals. I need to send him one of these crystal sampler packs, I think. Excellent. All right, that's good to hear that other people are getting interested in it. Now, the technical fundamentals, this is kind of like the ground level. If you're submitting a photograph to a competition, these things you need to pay attention to, because otherwise your picture is probably not going to fare well if you ignore these key things. First of all, it's nice to have a decent camera. It's absolutely essential that you have some kind of a camera, but a nicer one would be good. Something that gives you lots of resolution and dynamic range. I'm not saying you need an expensive camera to enter a competition, not by any means, but it does give you an edge if you have a good performing camera. Your lenses, for almost all of my competitions, you are perfectly fine with a macro lens. And if you don't have a macro lens but still want to enter, you can use extension tubes, reversed prime lenses, short focal length prime lenses, and turn in perfectly good pictures. I mean, that is absolutely acceptable. But if you want to maximize your chances of getting a really good picture and doing so without having to learn a whole lot of new stuff, then a good macro lens, 1:1. Most of my competitions, as far as magnification, they are all macro competitions, but they give you a range of magnifications. Usually it's 4:1 or 2:1 up to, 1:2 or 1:4, all the way up to 5x or whatever. And sometimes it's not specified, so you can choose. But most of the time, in most of the competitions, a good macro lens is all you'll need. Accessories like focusing rails, tripods, reflectors, diffusers, continuous lights, flash, all of that stuff, depending on what you're photographing, you need to know how to use it, and that's kind of too basic for us to go into right here. But just make sure that you have the fundamentals down, that you know how to take a good picture. Lighting and exposure are really, really important. And it is very important whether you're using natural light, flash, or LED panels, or blazing tiki torches, that you get your illumination right. And you pay attention to your histogram, and that the pictures you're turning in do not have blown highlights or black shadows that you can't see anything in. This is important. So make sure that you're looking at your image and sending in a well-lit subject. There's no escaping the need for diffusion. You will see, I'll mention several more times today, that poorly diffused light is going to give you poorly illuminated subjects most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. So knowing how to use diffusion, whether it's in the field or in the studio, to cut out harsh shadows or bright highlights and blown specular highlights, all of these things, and reflections too for that matter, all of these need to be dealt with, and knowing how to use diffusion is one of those fundamentals. Understanding aperture and depth of field is also mandatory to be competitive in a macro competition. There are several ways that we can deal with it. If you are using higher magnification, of course, and you need greater depth of field than your macro lens is likely to be able to give you, then you focus stack. So some degree of expertise in focus stacking is pretty necessary. But there are traps that you need to avoid falling into, and that would be using too small an aperture to get more depth of field. You end up submitting a picture that has loads of depth of field and loads of diffraction to go with it, especially if you're using extension tubes, that type of thing. So be conscious of how your aperture and your depth of field are interrelated. And the stability of the picture and the focus. It is just never going to work out well to submit a photograph to a competition if it has motion blur or camera shake visible in it. And it's one of those very basic requirements for a photograph to get through the first phase of judging. One of the things that we look at, and I'll go into all of the things that we look at in a minute, but one of them is how well was the picture stabilized? How well was the camera held in position while you took the shot? And if you're experiencing camera shake and you're seeing it in your images, you need to come up with a better way to secure the camera for a photograph you're going to submit to the competition. Whether you're using manual or autofocus doesn't really matter, but what matters is that you have in focus what you need to have in focus, and you have out of focus areas that are pleasing. And we'll talk about that more in just a second. But your focus needs to be accurate. It really does. One of the things that I see over and over again is getting the focal plane wrong, so that you're photographing the subject at a different angle than the area that you want to have in focus. In the simplest sense, if you're trying to photograph a flat thing, then your sensor needs to be parallel to that flat thing. And if one of them changes or both of them change, then you're going to have the focus in a band on your subject and dropping off on either side, and that looks terrible when you zoom in and look at it. So we look for that kind of thing. So they're the basics: lighting, exposure, equipment, and stability. That blower is blowing hot air across my eyeballs and it's drying them, which is strange, but there it is. Composition and subject matter. Okay, if you haven't figured this out already, choosing a subject is one of the most important things in submitting a picture for a competition. To the extent that you have the laterality to be able to choose your subject, then select something that is unusual. And that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be an unusual insect, say. It can be a perfectly ordinary insect, but it could be an unusual perspective or an unusual lighting technique. It could be an unusual magnification. It could be zooming in on a part. But choose a subject that is seen less often, that is less cliche. You can still submit cliche photographs, typical bee heads or whatever it is. That wasn't a good example, but you can shoot subjects that are commonly submitted. But when you do that, you have to make them so much better. You could get away with more if you were photographing something unusual, because the judge wants to like it because it's unusual. So, uniqueness. You could use rarer plants or rarer flowers or rarer insects. Certainly, that's one of the ways you could do it, but also just looking for a way to make it feel different and surprising. Emotion and impact are really what you're trying to accomplish with the way you compose the photograph. Composition in photography is taking the subject and putting it in a position or a pose under lighting of whatever type, with perspective of a particular type, with a background or an out of focus background, that together tell a story. So you need to think in terms of the emotional impact of a photograph. Judges really respond well to things that are outstandingly beautiful or awe-inspiring or shocking, even sometimes. It's there is so much in macro that can surprise people, because this is all about showing people stuff that they don't normally see. That there are lots and lots of ways in choosing your subject that you can trigger an emotional reaction or response in the judge. Framing your shot and leading the eye of the viewer to the parts that are most interesting is pretty straightforward if you just look at the photograph. What you're trying to do is draw the eye of the viewer to the part of the photograph that you think is most impactful. And you can do that by the way you position the subject in the frame. You can do it by using little tricks like the rule of thirds or golden ratios, all of those things that put the subject's key feature in the part of the frame that the eye will normally stray to. Remember things like the eyes drawn to the brightest part of the image first, most often. You don't want the most bright and striking part of the image to be in the background. You want them to be looking at the foreground. So you need to think about that when you're setting up the composition. And using all your techniques to emphasize or de-emphasize the background so that the eye is drawn to the subject is very, very important. The use of delightfully out of focus areas, a nice soft bokeh, for example, creates a lovely backdrop, but it doesn't pull your attention into it. You'll look at it, but you'll look at it later. So using techniques like getting the plane of focus and getting the depth of field right will allow you to have this drop off, which causes your subject to stand out. Okay, and that's one of the things that, whether they know it or not, the judge is looking for. And I see this over and over again when I'm watching one of the judges look at a photograph, and I can see exactly where their interest is drawn. To the extent possible, and it's not always possible to do this effectively, but use the elements of the photograph to tell a story if you possibly can. We are pattern recognition animals. When we see things that are new to us, we try to make sense of them. And one of the ways we make sense of them is by building a recognizable flow or pattern out of it. And we can use that to generate a narrative. We did a competition a couple of years ago that was all about storytelling. And my goodness, some of the photographs were so memorable. I actually tried to, the one thing about them that wasn't memorable was where I put them on my hard drive, because I was going to show them today and couldn't find them. But the storytelling is such a powerful tool. If you know what I'm talking about and you know how to do it, to add elements that will lead a human being looking at it to draw certain conclusions about the scene that they're looking at, you've got the battle halfway won. And it is not a surprise at all that the people who consistently win this competition, or any macro competition, are doing so because of their ability to generate a narrative out of a static two-dimensional picture. Go back and look at the photographs that have won Alison Pollock so many awards, particularly last year's Small World competition with the two slime mold fruiting bodies that appear to be hugging or holding hands. That was such a rich narrative. I could just see the judges falling for that, because that's what we do. That's what human beings do when they look at a photograph. They try to complete that story. So if you give them as much of that as you can, it will pay off. Getting some kind of curiosity, getting people wondering what it is you're showing them, is another way of drawing those narrative arcs, so that we fill in the details. It doesn't matter what the details are. If we find ourselves as judges trying to fill in the details on your picture's probably already won, because we're still looking at it. Environmental context, in incorporating bits of the environment, whether they're real or something that you've created, also add to the story. The more of a background surrounding storyline you can include, the better. All right, so one of the most important things in winning a competition is understanding what the judges are looking for. What are the criteria that we judge based upon? And I'm going to tell you exactly what they are in my competition, as I do every month. But these are the things that we look at. And if you want to win the competition, these are the things you should look at too. And when you find one that is problematic, fix it, because it will pay off. Technical precision is the first one. This is a very technical kind of photography. It's just like astrophotography and infrared photography and all these specialty things. Macros just like that. It requires precision, and getting images that are sharp, that have perfect exposure, clean backgrounds, well handled highlights and shadows are just really, really important. So getting your technically successful photograph is the baseline. Without that, photographs that are out of focus, overly sharpened or unsharpened but needed to be sharpened, these types of things really stop you from going any further, because if there are obvious technical issues, it's almost impossible to get beyond that. We also look for creativity and originality, both being slightly different things. An original subject is something that we haven't seen before, or we seldom see. And you'll remember, if you watch the video from this competition, that Lester on many occasions said, "I'd never seen that before. I loved it because I'd never seen it before." That is an almost surefire way to get the attention of the judge, but not always. Sometimes it can be so creative and so original that we don't have a clue what we're looking at, and that can be positive or negative depending on how good the photograph is. Take the second place photograph, third place photograph from Robert Stowross, this last competition. I did not realize what that was until Robert told me. It's super glue. I should find it to show it to you. But you know what? You've seen it, or you can see it in the video. But it's the third image, and it's super glue on a substrate. And I had no idea that's what it was. But the picture was so technically perfect. The way it was shot, the way it was illuminated, the detail, and how clean the image was. It didn't matter to me what it was I was looking at. As an abstract photograph, it was just gorgeous. That can be a risky approach. If you are not as talented as Robert, then you can end up confusing the judge, as well as leaving them satisfied that they're looking at a unique piece of abstract art. Sometimes you can't have a completely unique and surprising subject, but like I said at the outset, you can interpret it in some fresh way. And you've seen this over and over again in the winners of the competition. They've taken something that we're used to seeing and showing us something completely different about it. Again, I'm going to cite Robert Stowross, because he showed us a weevil's knee in this competition. Go figure. I mean, it was absolutely delightful and refreshing. And as much as I photograph weevils, I don't think I've ever focused on the weevil's knee. And now I wish I had. Absolutely brilliant. So, original and creative. Artistic merit. Now, this category takes into account things like color and creating. Also, composition would fall into this. The artistic part of the composition is making the image pleasing in an artistic sense, having colours that work together, that are harmonious. Or if you're trying to have a different effect on the judge, it may be that they're glaring and jangly. It doesn't matter so long as they are thought about artistically, and you're putting them in there to go with the feeling that goes with the photograph. So composing an image that is balanced, visually balanced, where the subject is, the colors, the way they play off each other, the light. You're looking to paint a picture with your photograph. That's the artistic merit that we look at and score. We also assign scoring, whether we realize we're doing it or not, to the emotional impact of the photograph, whether that is something that we feel wonder and awe looking at, or if it's just, even if it's just funny. Sometimes a picture that emotes laughter can be all you need to get the winning vote. Whatever it is you're trying to do, the more emotionally impactful it is, the more effective it's going to be for the judge. And we are looking for that. We are asking ourselves when we look at the picture, could this have had a greater emotional impact? What could have been done differently? And when we can't answer that, we know we're on to a winner. So the last thing we look for, though in many respects it's the first thing I look for, is adherence to the rules. If you're supposed to turn in no more than 2 photographs and you turn in 11, there's a good chance you won't win the competition. And some of them are a little more subtle, but we sometimes set limits for magnification. We set limits for, we don't really set many limits, do we? But some competitions do. Some will require the image to be of a certain file type or a certain size. And if you are given an instruction, they're written down where the competition is announced on the website. If there is a specific instruction in a given month, you really have to follow it. If you don't, you'll lose points, and it can get irritating. I have banged on and on till I basically just stopped talking about it, about naming photographs. Naming the photograph with a title that is descriptive or funny or helpful to the judge. That is a great way to get free points, is by telling us in the title of the image what we're looking at, or not telling us, but it still is part of the creative title. It's such an easy opportunity to make the picture a bit more memorable for the judge. The judges like to have a title that is coherent with the subject that they're looking at. It does make a difference. Yet I still get photographs that are called a file number. That's poor tradecraft. Come up with a title, even if it's just one word. When you submit a picture, give it a title. And when there are instructions about how you're supposed to name them, I spend more time in these competitions in typing out the names to go with the files, because the name the file has and the name that the entry is given are 2 different titles, 2 different names. It's very confusing sometimes. So you are likely to get more points from a judge who doesn't have to go behind you and clean up titles or spelling mistakes, that type of thing. Post-processing and polishing your final image is the next category. We do look at how a photograph is post-processed. And basically, you're better off always with an image that has been subtly or invisibly retouched or improved. If you overdo it with saturation or contrast, if you overdo basically any retouching operation to where it's obvious to look at the photograph that it's been overly sharpened, you're going to lose points because it doesn't look good. So make your changes as subtle as you can. Do all of your basic editing in Lightroom, your cropping, color balance, contrast, all that type of thing. And just watch out for over sharpening. In macro photography, it seems to be the ultimate mistake when it comes to post-processing, is to have a great photograph and take it over to Topaz and sharpen it at 9.5 until it just it looks fake. It looks over-processed. Watch out for that. And the same goes for color. There is always a temptation, if you've got a gorgeous green beetle, there is a temptation to amp up the green, to oversaturate the green because you want it to be even more poppy. That doesn't work. It's when things are oversaturated, it's as bad as when they're over sharpened. Subtlety is better. It's important that you use a focus stacking workflow that results in a quality focus stacked image. So it's very important to have as part of your workflow when you're submitting a focus stacked image that you've done the appropriate retouching, that you do not have focus banding, you do not have artifact that has been left behind that could have been cleared up. It's just really important to do that in a clear and realistic way. And presumably you're using a good focus stacking program like Helicon or Xerine, which is full of the tools that you need to do a good job. Learn how to use them and use them on your focus stacked images. It is hard to get really seriously into a photograph that has obvious focus banding because it doesn't look good. But it also suggests that you weren't looking at what you were doing. You weren't paying attention. All right, and talking about attention to detail is one of the post-processing things that I think we expect as judges. Dust spots, those little blobby things that show up on a gray background, which are a result of focus stacking or a dirty sensor. It doesn't matter what it comes from. Clean that stuff up. I mean, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like something you've given a lot of thought to if you're submitting a picture that's got blotchy spots on it. We have the tools to get rid of them. Even in Lightroom, you can just get rid of them and turn in a clean picture. And you have to be mindful of keeping the image realistic and true to the integrity of the subject. There are competitions where, well, in my competition, if you go overboard and you actually use some compositing techniques in your post-production, well, we don't allow that. You're not allowed to composite unless that's stated in the rules for that competition. So that would be considered the most egregious of the post-processing mistakes to make. It's not a mistake. It's not a good idea, and it has happened. It has happened, and it will continue to. So make your changes as subtle as you can, and always look at the photograph before you submit it to make sure that you haven't overdone anything or made the subject look unrealistic. All right. Submitting the photographs. Now, in my particular competition, it's not that big a deal, but it is important that you bear in mind that the competition that you're entering is going to have specific guidelines for the file type that you submit, and probably also for the size, the dimensions. This is a no-brainer. If you don't do that, your picture will probably be disqualified. Even in my competition, and we try to be as open-minded as possible about this kind of thing. But if you send in a TIFF that's 3 times bigger than the JPEG we asked for, then I won't be able to save it. So you'll probably end up getting DQ'd for that. So we talked about color and color spaces. Remember that the way the competition is done, we look at these pictures on the computer. We present them to you on the computer. They'll be part of a video shown on the computer. They'll be copied and shown on my website, all on the computer. Use a color gamut that is going to show the colors the way that they were edited and the way that you have them seen on your screen. In other words, sRGB. Don't get cute with the color spaces. So just make sure it is at the right size, the right dimensions, whatever. If we ask for a photograph that is 1:1 aspect ratio, send a square image, okay? Don't push your luck. We talked about title and description. A compelling title will improve the chances of your photograph getting further in the finals. It absolutely will. I hear it from everybody who I judge with. Oh, that's a funny title. That title goes great with that photograph, and that results in bumping it up a notch. And it's so easy to do. Just use your imagination. If you are allowed to submit a caption, which we don't in my competition, but in some you certainly can. You can put a very short explanatory blurb in there, make it very short and very succinct, and have it only say the most important stuff. Nobody is going to read an essay attached to the photograph. I promise they won't. And it's an opportunity for you to embellish the story, to give the judge more of the narrative that the picture's given them. You can do that with the title, and you can also do it with this caption if you're allowed to use one, but be careful. Deadlines and just not cutting yourself out of the competition because you misjudged how long it takes. If you haven't submitted to a competition before, start the process well in advance of the deadline. It's amazing how many things can go wrong in getting a picture from a concept to a finished competition entry if you leave it to the last minute. And I know lots of people who don't enter competitions because they leave it too long. It's crazy. Double check everything before you submit it. Make sure you're in the right format, in the right color space, that it's the right size or aspect ratio and the right file type. Do all of that before you submit it. All right, so how do you make an impact or stand out when you have 99 other photographs? I remember that Harold Hall, who judged with me earlier, last year during the summer, made a couple of very, very important points when we were judging together, and that was that you only have an instant, a twinkling, to make an impact on your judge. They are going to look at your photograph, and that is your best chance to grab their attention and get them on your side. If you don't have that, then you're just going to have to hope and pray that they're interested enough in the subject that they'll keep looking. But catching the interest and standing out by having, for example, a recognizable style is very powerful. Who is the best example of a recognizable style that stands out right now? It's got to be Klaus. Klaus Gilloy takes photographs that are outstanding and have a real Klaus Gilloy feel to them. I mean, I can spot them a mile off, or I could until Graham started nipping at his heels. So coming up with a style that's yours is certainly one way to get noticed in a competition. If you do it really well, then you become the kind of go-to guy for 5x Mitutoyo photography, and your pictures will be recognized and have more impact. Finding a way to be fairly consistent in the way you express your style can also help, but don't overdo it. Avoid cliches. How can you develop this style? How can you start to produce photographs that are more prize-worthy? It's all the things that we do on this channel. It's building a network of people, your friends on Discord, your fellow competitors in the competition, the people who show up for the live streams, talking to them, comparing notes, attending workshops, going to Alan Walls's picnics in Peoria, that type of thing. Those kind of situations lend themselves to getting constructive, helpful feedback from friends. Friend back? I think I just made a new word up. But getting feedback from friends who are genuinely interested in your doing better. So building all of these support devices around you will make you a better competition entrant, because you're going to start getting advice and guidance from people who really know how to do it well. Remember that sometimes the judges in a competition are also interacting with you in other ways, like, for example, this, me telling you how to win the competition. That's actually true in a lot of different ways. You'll see competitions out there where the judge is also part of that photographic community, just like I am with this one. And that's a great way to learn more about. That's how everybody knows that you get extra points for submitting weevils. You don't, but I mean that would be something I think people would expect to be true, because I love weevils. Once you know what the judge loves, it makes the job a lot easier, doesn't it? Anyway, winning doesn't happen overnight. You ask anybody who has won this competition if this was their first rodeo. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't think, you know what, I'm going to submit some pictures. I've been doing this for 6 months now, and I ought to be able to win competitions. There is a real art to submitting entries to competitions that can win, and it happens over months and years of doing it. You have to learn so much to be able to not only take great pictures, but take great pictures that are kind of purpose-built for winning competitions. It is a skill set in and of itself. And some people don't have it and are not interested in it, and that's fine. But those of you who are and would like to win them, if you pay attention to these things that I've talked about, and not only submit technically great photographs, but that use emotion and narrative and are careful with color and careful with post-production, you'll see your images start to move up the ranking, I promise. And don't be afraid to experiment, by the way, because all of the really cool stuff, all of the surprising and unusual stuff does come from experimentation. It seldom ever comes from getting a picture ready for a competition. This is something that you do in your studio or in your trips to the woods. You develop this style, you experiment with it, you get good at it, and then you find the picture that you want to submit to the competition using that set of styles. It is a process that it's iterative. It's like learning how to 3D print. You have to make a lot of mistakes before you're getting anywhere close to consistent with it, and that's the same with competitions. It's a long game. So if anybody's frustrated or disappointed that they have been at this for 3 weeks now and haven't won a competition, yeah, that's not realistic. All right, what are the most common pitfalls? The most common things that trip people up are over processing, over sharpening, or over saturating colors, ignoring basic competition rules like do not submit 11 photographs. That's one that's done all the time. And cliche. So over processed, wrongly labeled cliche photographs are never going to win. So avoid going crazy with your post-production. Follow the rules and try to be as original and surprising and refreshing in your subject and the way you shoot them. I'm going to balance that last statement by saying, but don't ever quit pushing the boundaries. Don't ever stop thinking of clever ideas. When I am asked for an example of a clever picture from my competition, I think Zeno's a photograph of pictures at an exhibition. Go back and look at it. It was several months ago, but it was a memory chip photographed, and it looked like pictures lined up on a gallery wall. It's so refreshing, such a clever narrative behind it, lovely use of color, composition, detail. So that's the way to win the competition. And if you go back and look at any of our 30 previous competitions and go and look at the winners, you're going to see that every one of them fulfills those basic requirements and gets most everything right. And it's that part of it, just takes practice and commitment. All right, that's it. That's all I had to say. So let me see who's here and see what kind. Larry's back, emerging from crazy work schedule. Good to have you back, Larry. It's still January though. All right, let me see. So Zeno's here. Well, your ears probably are not burning because you actually heard me say all that. Well done. Thoughts on placing title directly on a border? No. Unless you are instructed to do that, do not do it. And I'm glad you said this. Let me just give you a tip from me. Do not put a signature watermark thing on your pictures. It doesn't look good. I strongly urge you not to do it. I have never found a judge who responds positively to it. It either looks a little bit conceited or distracting or both. It just never works. We know who you are because you submitted the picture. You don't have to sign it. You don't have to sign it. And I would avoid that. Now, you would not lose points, Zeno, for submitting a photograph that had the title in a caption. I don't think that we would ever require it, but it doesn't really help because of the way the software is set up and everything. But it's a good point. It's a good point. It does highlight the most important issue, though, is just do what the instructions call for, and if the instructions don't require you to have anything printed on the a caption printed below the picture, probably best not to do it. I don't see how it could go well. 22 years of Camera Club competition where the titles are hidden until the judge makes his concept. This concept really foreign to me. Okay, let me reread that again. So Michelle's talking about Camera Club competitions where the titles are hidden until the judge makes his ruling. Right. Okay. That is true for some competitions, and again, it comes down to just following the rules. But in this case, even though it may be foreign to you, we do look at the titles, and I consider it an extension of the photograph. It's part of your creativity. It's part and parcel with the photograph. I happen to disagree quite strongly with the idea of removing a title from a picture, but that's me, and it's my competition, so I can do that. But I see your point. If you're not used to it, it would be strange. But don't look at it as a strange impediment to submitting a good photograph. Think of it as an opportunity to get more points by coming up with a clever title. Okay, 43 likes. That's pretty good. Thank you, guys. Don't forget to subscribe or like, or I forget, what are you supposed to do? Ask David. David knows. And let me see. Anything else here? Diane, I responded to your request for comments on your photographs, and it's been done. It's over on Patreon. And Demetrius is here from Athens. Greetings, Demetrius. Hope you're well. Hope the weather's nice there. Joseph's here. Greetings. And let me see. Bud's here. Greetings, Bud. How are you doing today, sir? Okay, Bud's reminding everybody to bring, anybody coming to AfterStack on Saturday, please bring a problem image or a problem child. Bring a picture that you need help with. That's what Bud does. And he's going to be addressing subjects that arise during the discussion. He has a few ideas that you will certainly find interesting. But it's a round table, it's a discussion, so bring your pictures and we'll do that. There you go. And I think we're good. Have I answered every question? I think so. Anita, greetings, good to see you. Harold, so happy to hear you're doing birefringent crystals, Harold. I think you're really going to get into that. I love it. All right, Pierre is here. Good evening, Pierre. And it's cold weather in Paris. And Pierre, tell me you don't want me to feel sorry for you. It is frigid in Peoria. Other than starting with a P, they couldn't be more different. But it is so bitterly cold here. It can't be this cold in Paris. They'd close France down. Okay. I think we are just about done. Bribery. Art. Greetings. I don't get the bribery reference, but yep, there you go. Julie's here from Huntsville. Alan's here. Alan, greetings. And I think Susan is here from Huntsville too, and she mentioned something about a snowstorm on the way. George, I missed a phone call from you earlier. I do apologize. I was tied up. And Ingolf, greetings. Germany is covered in snow as well. Now, I bet UAE Photographer is not dealing with any snow at all. Has it ever snowed in Abu Dhabi? I don't think so. Do you know what snow is, sir? Oh, you're lucky. You're lucky. Paul is here. It's chilly in Tempe, Arizona. No, it's not. You're confused, Paul. It never gets chilly there, I don't think. Boy, I hope anybody... and Susan's here from the chilly north as well. And Emily also. I hope everybody who is out west, and I'm thinking particularly of folks like Alison Pollock and Mike Canfer, who live out there. Well, Mike lives right there in Hollywood, and I hope he's staying safe and his family's safe. Those fires out there are something shocking to behold. But yeah, stay safe, Mike. And yeah, that's it. We're done. We're done. Go and have a great weekend, and I'll look forward to seeing you after the weekend. I'm photographing Amish horses. I didn't realize horses could be Amish, but apparently these ones are. So that's what I'll be doing on Saturday while Bud is chatting with you on the round table after Stack. Okay, everybody, take care, stay safe, and be well. Thanks for coming, and have a great weekend. Good day. And if I missed saying hi to you because I didn't see your name, I apologize. It was unintentional. All right.